Good evening. We can try to generate good intentions. Having us here come together. Giving our precious time to listen and to discuss and to reflect on the all these different causes and conditions to actualize all the spiritual realization within our mainstream. And having actualized all the spiritual realization, maybe be able to fully awaken state. So we can be more benefit and help to each and every sentient beings in the best way. Okay.
We'll start on page 73 in the prayer books with the praise to Shakti Buddha. And we'll do it 3 times in English. To the founder, the endowed, and the destroyer, the one gone beyond the focus, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of these teacher of gods and humanities, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent, the glorious conqueror, the secure from the chakra clan, I prostrate in your offerings and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the focus rider, the completely awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings, retainer, teacher of all the human beings, to you, fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the subject plane, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, perfected fully awakening, prophetic knowledge and good conduct, to God and know of the world, sovereign God, judgment, and teacher of God, and beings. To you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the sacred land, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for that. And on page 97, we'll do the short mandala offering once in and once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I am to the Dharma and the Sangha. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Um, again, for coming. Wonderful. Thank you for everyone for coming, and wonderful to see again for many of you after a long time. And so again, it's lovely to be in person and to be able to yes, there is something wrong with the internet. So I think it's a good reminder that we are not only in that, we are still in that. So we just started from last week. We just started last week.
I think it's working. I think this is my phone back there.
Okay. So we just started last week. Lam Zong Kha was the song of the spiritual experiences. Which is very short but very wonderful text. And it's the commentary to the earlier text that we just discussed. Where it kind of suits well. I was earlier stage with homage to the lineage teachers, Mamas, where he started paying homage to the Buddha Shakyamuni himself. And then after that, he started paying homage to the Maitreya and Manjushri, who carry on the teachings. And then next one in the verse number 3, he paid homage to the Nagarjuna and Asangas. So in terms of those teachings, there is a wisdom lineage and there is a method lineage. In terms of the wisdom lineage, then it is being Manjushri Nagarjunas, and then through Nagarjuna to Geshe. Of course, there's many in between there. That pass through them and Asanga, Adisha Divankara, and from Adisha Divankara through other Kadamba masters up to Lam Zong Kha, and from Lam Zong Kha up to our direct gurus, teachers in terms of ourselves. But here Lam Zong Kha was paying homage to earlier master before him, who have carried those. And so if we go to the verse number 3, where it says, so difficult to fathom is the mother of all conquerors. So that yeah. Which is a no sound. Can you hear? Is there sound? Yeah, okay. Okay, now they are hearing. That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So difficult to fathom the mother of all conqueror. The mother of all conqueror here refer to the wisdom, realizing the emptiness, and sometimes that is known as the prasna paramita. The wisdom realizing emptiness is called mother of all conqueror because sometimes we call mother prasna paramita, and because all the enlightened beings achieve their enlightened state by relying on that wisdom. And sometimes you see terms like wisdom as a mother and the method as the father. Sometimes you see in the sutras terms, and because the mother is the one who gives the birth to the older child. There might be many different child, and there might be sometimes different fathers, but it's the mother is the one. Similarly, different enlightenment, whether it's the fully enlightenment or there is an arhat, different three kinds of enlightenment, they all come through the wisdom. Whereas the method, the bodhicitta, is a unique of the bodhisattvas. Not the arhat doesn't depend on the bodhicitta to achieve the enlightenment. And so therefore it is different. And so that is why they use term, different term, father and mother in that something. And in Pandit, I think there are different uses of father and mother, The clear light wisdom's mothers, the illusory body is father. So anyway, here that is what is the mother of all conquerors. So that the object of that wisdom, emptiness, is not easy to understand, easy to realize. So that is why it's the fact. The difficult to fathom is the mother of all conqueror. You who unravel is content as it is at the jewel of the world. So it's referring to Nagarjuna and Asanga, who is clarifying or unraveling the meaning of that mother prasna paramita, the wisdom. Buddha have given a lot of teaching on wisdom in prasna paramita sutras, and sometimes it's not easy, if you read those prasna paramita, sometimes it's not easy to understand without some commentaries. And so therefore, later, the masters, such as Nagarjuna, Asanga, they wrote a commentary on that. And they kind of clarify some of those, which is not easy to understand. And so that, such as Nagarjuna, Asanga, they are like the jewel of the world, especially from the, at least from the Buddhist point of view, minor Buddhist point of view, they are the main figures who have helped to preserve and continue to preserve and spread the Dharma, and make it more clarify some things which are not clear for a lot of people who couldn't understand fully, so they clarify that. So therefore, the rare are the jewel of the world. So in terms of the Prasna Paramita Sutras, the main explicit subject is the wisdom. The hidden subject is the path of the method. It doesn't explain for example, if you are reading Has Sutra or Diamond Kata Sutra or other Prasna Paramita Sutra, there is a mentioning of the bodhicitta, but it doesn't go details. There's only mentioning of that, but it doesn't go details. Of course, there are more detailed explanation of emptiness itself. And so that is the explicit, the direct explanation in the path of the wisdom and hidden kind of inexplicitly it explained the method path. Okay, and so the wisdom path is being unraveled by the Nagarjuna, and the method path has been unraveled by the Asanga, and so that's why you are held with a great fame in all three spheres of the world. So Nagarjuna and Asanga, their fame has spread all over the world. I pay homage to you, O Nagarjuna and Asanga. So especially in Mahayana traditions, they are the whole stemming from those two great charioteers with excellence. So the charioteers here is someone who kind of cleared the path. There's already a path, but the path has been kind of too much bush and not ready to and so they come and clear all this path. So that is why those two are the charioteers. Nagarjuna and Asanga are the two paths of profound view and a vast contact. So Nagarjuna is the charioteer of the profound view, the wisdom of emptiness, and Asanga is the charioteer of the vast contact, which method, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, the practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, all of those part of that vast contact. You are the custodian of the treasure of instruction encompassing all the essential point of those paths without error, And so Nagarjuna and Asanga have been able to keep that path of wisdom, the profound view of wisdom, and the vast method of contact, unmistakably, and have been able to keep it pure. And through their kindness, then we are able to now study and practice. If it wasn't for their commentaries, and that probably, if you actually just read the Heart Sutra and all other sutras, probably we could have a lot of misunderstanding. You said there's no ear, there's no form, no feeling, and you might say, what are they saying about, But through their commentary, then we understand what's the real meaning of that, And so that is why it helped us to understand better and then to practice better. And therefore, Lam Tsongkhapa here, he paid homage to the Vilangala. So those two paths, the wisdom lineage and the method lineage, that is passed through Nagarjuna Asanga to the Adisha. He carried all this lineage. And mainly he studies in terms of the vast contact of the method. He studied with many teachers, but especially with one teacher. Now he's part of Indonesia, it's called Lama Selingpa, Dhammarakshita, I think it's not his name, in Tibetan Selingpa. He studied with him 12 years, and mainly on the method path. And then there is another teacher, Ritbe Kujuk in Tibetan. And from him, he studied mostly the wisdom lineage, the vast view, the upper emptiness, And so he received all different lineage and all different teaching from so many, as I mentioned before, more than 154 gurus he had, gurus and teachers he studied with. That is how much he kind of dedicated, trying to preserve, trying to keep all this lineage alive. And so this Lamrim is is the commentary, the Adisha's lamb of the path, as I mentioned. So here, paying to Divankara or Adisha, I pay homage to you, Divankara. And next, next paying homage to Lama Tsongkhapa, his own direct gurus. Okay, these are the lineage guru he had not met himself, but who have been critical in preserving and passing all these teachings. Okay, and now he's paying homage to his direct guru's direct teacher, from whom he received teachings directly, and from whom he received all the instructions, from whom he studied and under their guidance, where he practiced and where he developed his realizations. And so you are the eyes to see all the mermaid collection of scriptures. So this one can refer to the teacher themselves, or it can refer to the root of this text, the lamb of the path to enlightenment. So either the lamb of the path is like the eyes that open us to the endless scriptures, the essence of all the scriptures, Or in other words, the teacher themselves, his teacher themselves, who help to open your eyes to be able to understand all the meaning of all these vast scriptures, Yeah, definitely, in my cases, earlier, when I went to teaching with His Holiness Dalai Lama or other Thai Lamas, a lot of subject I wouldn't even get what they're talking about, When they give general advice, I can understand that. But when they're in technical, more philosophy and more deeper practice, I will be totally lost, Just being there, but totally lost, not totally what they are talking about. But under kindness of my other teacher, whom I studied in Sera and others, and now when I listen to those teachings, practicing one thing, but at least I have the understanding of that intellectually, at least I have the understanding. And that is because of my teachers, they open the eyes. When I read the scriptures, I have some understanding of meaning of that. Practicing one thing, but at least I have the intellectual understanding of that, which I didn't have before. I can read different commentary, I can read different sutta, and I have some understanding of that. And even though I go to the different teachings, I can understand most of them, and because of, so that is like the eye that open, and it is the teacher who helped me to do that. And so that's, to the fortunate ones traveling to the freedom, you illuminated the excellent path. And for 41 here, referring to those who are inclinations, who have interest, inclination to nirvana, enlightenment, for those are the one who is traveling to freedom or nirvana, enlightenment. Then the teachers, or the Lambrin, you illuminate the excellent path, how to travel through that path, spiritual path to enlightenment, how to travel, illuminate, show the path, explain the path, and also, inspire us through their examples, through their practice, and through that it illuminates the excellent path towards enlightenment. And you do this through skillful deeds steered forth by the compassion, and the teachers does that in terms of the motivation, with the compassion to help and benefit the disciple, the students, so that they can find their own spiritual path, so that they can achieve their own spiritual goals, and to the means of skillful means deeds. Because everyone's different. So it requires skills. Just whether it's a spiritual teaching or whether it's even normal teachings or as a parent, as a teacher, you have to have a different skill to deal with different students, different because you can't treat everyone the same. Everyone's very different. Sometimes you have to kind of teach them differently. Sometimes you have to lead them differently according to their inclination, according to their understanding, according to their needs. And that is one of the job of the teachers. And through that, then that's how, and therefore, from his own teachers, gurus, out of their very compassion and their skillful means that show him the excellent path to enlightenment, those who gave him the eyes to understand all the meaning of those teachings and put into practice. I pay respectful homage to you, all my spiritual mentors. So he's paying homage to all his direct and indirect lineage teachers, mentors, spiritual masters. So he started that. And again, it next, is the lineage, where did this teaching come from? The teachings or the source, where does it pass through? So it's the true lineage. Verse numbers. You are the crowning jewels among the learned ones of this world. So again, referring to especially all the lineage gurus, but especially Nagarjuna and Asanga. Okay. In earliest writings, I don't remember who composed that. There's a prayer known as who used to recite every day when we were in Chogni. It is known as Six Ornament and Two Supreme. And those are some of the very crucial Indian masters who were crucial in preserving and spreading the Mahayana Dharma. And in recent time, His Holiness wrote a prayer. And in that, he has 17 of those great masters, great scholars, masters who have been crucial in preserving and spreading the Dharma, and so here, so there are the jewels among the very most learned ones, especially within the Mahayana traditions. Of course, over the centuries, there have been so many great learned ones, so many great expert learned ones, thousands, 100,000 of so many of them. Among them, those masters like Nagarjuna and Asanga, they stood out, among them. So they are the jewel of all the learned ones of this world, especially in Mahayana tradition, lineage and world. General in Buddhism, and especially in that, and not only for general in Buddhism, but you can say there are the jewel for the whole world itself. They have contributed, not only Buddhists, but also I think many others, through their different writings. Just like His Holiness Dalai Lama has inspired so many non-Buddhists to be compassionate. Believer, non-believers, believer, other religions, also very inspired by his message of love and compassion. Many of them actually follow his advice, practice them, even they are not a Buddhist. And then there are many who doesn't believe in any spiritual path or any religious, who have been very much inspired by something like His Holiness Dalai Lama, of his message of human value, love, compassion, all of that. And just as His Holiness has contributed so much, not only to the Buddhists, but also to the world in that way, same Nagarjuna message, Asanga message has also benefited so many beings at their time and continue to benefit them. His Holiness message come through them, come through them. His Holiness was inspired by them, their teachings, and that's why he got his realization, and that's why he shared. So, therefore, in that way, then they are the crowning jewels of the all learned one in this world. Your banners of fame, the fame of Nagarjuna Asanga, very among the sentient beings, it kind of spread, especially among the Mahayana Buddhists, everyone knows who Asanga and Nagarjuna is. Everyone knows Asanga, those who have studied, not only among Mahayana, but also in general, all the Buddhist community, and they have some understanding of who Nagarjuna is, who Asanga is, what their writing, what their contributions are. All Nagarjuna and Asanga, from you flow in this excellent state esteem, these instructions on the stages of pattern enlightenment. So these stages to pattern enlightenment that Amaton that is going to share or write through his own experiential realization or experience, spiritual experience, which he's going to share. He said they're all these teachings, instructions come through Nagarjuna Asanga. Coming from all of them. So that is So the next one is, the explaining the unique or excellent qualities of these stages of the path. Stages of the path, which is common to the length of the path to enlightenment. So Amazon Kava explaining the unique quality of that through, example as well. So since it fulfills all the wishes of being without exception, is the King of Kings among all quintessential instructions. So it's like a wish fulfilling. This instruction is like wish fulfilling because it fulfills the wishes of all sentient beings. The way it fulfills the wishes of all sentient beings is all sentient beings want happiness. Temporary, some temporary happiness, some ultimate happiness, some both, Some are probably not interested in enlightenment, ultimate happiness. They might be just more interested in temporary happiness. Some sentient beings. Some sentient beings are not satisfied with just an ordinary samsaric pleasure and joyful happiness, but they are more interested in a more spiritual, ultimate happiness, And in order to achieve those happiness, the way to achieve our inner happiness is through our practice, transforming our mind, working with our mind. You cannot achieve inner peace, inner happiness. We cannot buy inner peace, happiness from external things. The external thing can only give us certain comfort, physical pleasure. But they cannot give you true sense of inner peace, inner joy, happiness. And the only way we can achieve that is through training our mind. Practicing, training our mind. And in order to train our mind, we need to know how to train the mind. We need to know how to train the mind. And so, such as these stages of the path are the one that help us, that that teach us how to train the mind and thereby how to achieve the happiness, temporary ultimate happiness. And therefore, that is how it fulfills the wishes of sentient beings. Since it gathered into it thousands of excellent rivers of trees, it is as well the ocean of most glorious, well-uttered insights. So it's like oceans from where different sorts of, where all different rivers and all these come into one thing. They all go to the oceans, In the same way, there are so many different Buddhist scriptures, teachings, practice, so many different form of practice, so many different teachings. And when they all go to the same essence, the station of the path is like the oceans. They all come, the essence of all this teaching is contained in this station of the path. Okay. If you read all the sutras, the essence of all the sutras is contained in this stage of the path. You can read Nagarjuna's writing. There are many Nagarjuna writings. Sometimes it seems very complicated, philosophical, and Asangas, all the great masters. But then the essence of all of them is again in this stage of the path. And so therefore, this is like oceans, where the essence of all those different sutta commentaries, teachings, and the practice all come in the same one place, the stage of the path. So that is why it is the oceans of Lord's word and insights. And next one, 4 unique, excellent qualities of this stage of the path. I explain it helps to recognize teaching to be free of contradictions. So, if we have not studied such as stages of the path, if you are just randomly, if you read some different Buddhist books, teachings, it might feel like there are contradictions. You might feel like there are contradictions, Because as I mentioned, the Buddha's teaching is very personal, not always so general, personal, according to the required of individuals, And so therefore, something that is given to one person for their requirement and something that's given to another person for their requirement, sometimes they might feel like contradictions. Do you get it? If you don't understand why this was given particularly this and this, if you don't understand the background and all of that, why and what that really means, that sometimes you will find a lot of contradictions. I think I already mentioned before, when Buddha was asked whether it is safe or not, he gave 3 different ways of answer according to different individuals. There are times when, of course, most times he said there's no self. Okay, his main teaching is selflessness. But there are times when one particular individual in sudden, when he was asked whether there is self or not, he didn't say there is no self, he didn't say there is self. The best for that person, that moment, was no comment. Because if he comment either of them, it is not going to help that person, but that is going to make that person to fall in one of the extreme view. If he said there is a self, he will fall in one extreme. If he said there is no self, he will fall in another extreme, because he didn't have the capacity to understand either way, he said, because of his mindset in that moment. So Buddha didn't say anything, keep quiet. Then there are times when an individual asks whether there's self, he said there is a self. But of course, he's not talking about the self, inherent existence self, but in terms of he's talking about, a self that is kind of the someone who experience the different experiences, someone that is the experience, the subject, the experience, the subject who's experiencing different experiences, and that time he have to say because that individual grow up in his whole life believing there is a self, because that was the theory before Buddhism came. There is a permanent self. There is a theory of permanent self. And if Buddha said there is no self, he would be, he wouldn't be able to understand and able to accept it, and he would fall in a very, very negative state of mind. So the best to help him at that moment would say there is a self. And then slowly, according to his needs, guiding skillfully, step by step. So if you see three answers he gave, it's in contradiction, all of them, isn't it? One time he said there's no self, another time he said self, another time he didn't say anything, but because when he talk about selfness, he's talking about something else. When he said there was self, he's talking about something else, and for the needs of different individuals. So there will be. So seemingly, if we have not studied, and if you read those things, you will see there's so much contradictions. Even in the rules and regulations, you will find contradictions. Because his rules and regulations are not fixed. It changes according to the time, according to the society, according to the place, Something that he said to his followers, monks and nuns, that you shouldn't do that. Then when they go to another place, that will be reversed. Do you get it? It will be reversed. So again, there's some contradiction, isn't it? But there is no contradiction because it's a requirement of different situations, different places in that, Just to give one example of that, very simple example is, first he made rules that, the monks, they shouldn't be taking too much bath every day. It's wasting the energy, wasting the water, wasting your time, and it's not required to be healthy, that you don't have to take every day, the showers or bath. But then when they move from place to places, when they come to a place where there's extremely hot, humid, the rule change, you have to bath every day. Because if you don't bath every day, you will smell, you will have a effect others, as well as it can have an effect on your health. So the rule change. So there are many of those rules for the monks, they change like that, So again, it's some seemingly contradiction, but again, there's a reason for that. And so therefore, that's why it's saying, this, when we study the stages of path, it helps to recognize all teaching to be free of contradictions. So we understand it seems seemingly contradiction, but they are not contradictions. When you have studied such as like this lumbering, then you understand, all. So therefore, it helps you to be free from contradictions. It helps to understand all different Buddha's teachings, even they seem seemingly contradictions sometimes, but they all are a skillful means to guide individuals towards the enlightenment, directly, indirectly. You know, basically, they all, it's like, you know, if you have to go to the richest destination, for some you say you take that road, some you say take this road, depending on how you drive, depending on what kind of car you have, you know. But seemingly it's all guiding towards the same destinations and guiding according to your needs to reach there. You know, so it helps the dawning of all scripture as a pit instructions. It helps us to understand all the sutras and all the commentary by all the great masters. They all as a pit instructions to practice, to integrate. Instead of seeing some of them just a philosophical, not for a practice. Do you get it? Oh, this is not for it. Nagarjuna's writing, or this is just a philosophical. Or this is for those who are interested in philosophy. I'm not interested in philosophy, I don't need that. Do you get it? Differentiating, oh, these are something for practice, and these are not for practice, for intellectual, academic, philosophy. Sometimes we can have that kind of misunderstanding. Do you get it? And separate, oh, this is for practice. Or this is a fit instructions, helpful. This is to practice. Or these are not, those are just a debate, philosophical, academic. I'm not interested in academic philosophy. Therefore, it's not something to be practiced. So when you practice, then we understand all of those are actually instructions. Sometimes when we don't fully understand, sometimes it feels like it is nothing to do with practice. It's just a debate. It is just a philosophy, academic. But if you really understand depth enough, you see all of them are actually instructions, for practice. And so with that, then we don't have a misunderstanding and negative thoughts towards some of those scriptures and teachings. So we have respect for all of them. It's one thing whether we can study or not. That's another thing, isn't it? Whether we can study, whether we are interested in studying this or not, whether we want to practice this or not, that is another thing. But not to criticize, by understanding, they all are instructions to the path, all of those teachings. We might not be, inclined to a certain study, certain practice. That's okay, but just because we are not inclined to a certain practice, certain teaching, doesn't mean that they are not helpful, they are not beneficial. That doesn't mean they are not instructions, or they are not a good instructions. So that is. It helps to find easily the enlightened intention of conquerors. When you practice the stages of the path, it helps. Even though all those teachings are instructions, but like as I mentioned, if you try to read Sutra themselves, many of them, you try to read Nagarjuna's writing, many of those earlier great Indian writings, sometimes we can be lost. We can be lost, Even though they are instructions, but we will not be able to really come to a conclusion and understand how this instruction, how that I can apply in my practice, how that is related with the practice. Sometimes we can get kind of lost, not easy subject sometimes. But if we rely on stages of path, it helps to find easily enlightened intent conquer. Then we understand, oh, that is what it is. Or this Nagarjuna's writing or this text is related to emptiness. And the wisdom relating emptiness is related to this particular practice, instructions. Oh, this is related with this particular practice of this particular path. So you begin to see, oh, it is only extension of these practices. Do you get it? You begin to see it's an extension of those practices. And for those who doesn't have that kind of mindset or time to study those broad, extensive scriptures, still by studying the spiritual path, you still are able to understand and get the very essence of all those teachings easily, easily all the meaning and the essence of that. It helps also to guard against abyss of grave negative deeds, And so by studying the spiritual path, then we begin to understand, all those different teachings directly or indirectly, one way, another way to help individual sentient beings to achieve their high potential to the enlightenment. When we understand that, then we don't criticize, So then we don't have to create negative karma by criticizing. There's no doubt certain teaching, certain practice suits our minds. Certain teaching, certain practice might not suit our mind. Okay? And those which suit our mind, we try to apply that, we try to practice that. Those which doesn't suit our mind, we can keep it aside, but we don't have to criticize them. Because it suits and helps some other individual to achieve enlightenment, And therefore, we don't have to criticize just because it doesn't suit you. Just because we cannot understand everything correctly now, fully now. Something we don't understand, we just keep it aside, And of course, that is even so for the Dharma, as His Holiness advice all the time, His Holiness advice, why we should respect every spiritual path, every religion. We can have our individual practice, our individual religion or spiritual path. We don't have to practice and follow all the spiritual path, all the religions. We practice our own religion, our own spiritual, that suits our mind, our way of thinking. But respect the others because it helps so many other sentient beings. Each spiritual path, each religious help a lot of individuals to become better persons. It helps a lot of people to be more moral, It helps a lot of them to find a hope in a difficult time. It gives them a lot of hope, inspirations because of their spiritual path, because of their belief, because of their religious. When things are collapsing in their life, when they feel totally let down or fall down because of their spiritual path, because of belief in the God, whatever, it keeps them alive, give them hope in that. It helps them. It helps them, for many people, it helps them to be more kind, compassion. For many people, it helps them to be more caring, generous to other beings. For many beings, it helps them to be more patient, tolerant. So therefore, with that understanding, we kind of respect them, each of them respect. We don't have to criticize them, We don't have to practice ourselves if it doesn't suit our mind, but we don't have to criticize them. So by criticizing, we create a lot of negative karma. By criticizing that, we are also kind of hurting a lot of other people who follow that path. So therefore, that being the case, the stages of path, when here Lama Tsongkhapa, when he says station of the path, is mainly referring to the root text, Lamb of the path to enlightenment, because this is commentary with that, but of course, this being commentary with that, of course, both of them are stations of the path. Okay? And that having those kind of all these qualities, excellent qualities, therefore, this most excellent instruction that's sought after by the numerous fortunate one, like the learned one of India and Tibet, great masters, great scholars, practitioners of early, India and Tibet, of course, at that time. This instruction of stages the path of the persons of three capacity, the three capacity, of initial or small capacity, middle capacity, and great capacity, these capacities. With intelligent person is there whose mind is not captured by it, So basically saying, everyone who have learned a little bit about the Dharma, especially like the stage of the path, if you have been exposed to that, if you have learned a little bit about that, if you know a little bit about that, there's no way that you will not be captured by that. There's no way that you will not be inspired by that, And so that it has always been inspired by it earlier in India, Tibet. It continued to inspire in other rest of the world. It has inspired so many practitioners to really dedicate their life to practice because of being captured and inspired by such teachings that keeping aside all the philosophical complicating discussions, we're trying to keep it simplified to how to implement and practice in simplified way. That is what the stage path Amrin does. It without going so much details in those discussions on all those different philosophy and all of that, trying to keep it very simple. How everyone, even those who doesn't have a lot of time or who doesn't have the mindset of that kind of intellectual understanding or studies, anyone with any kind of mental state, where anyone can understand and can apply easily. And so that is. And so these concise instructions of spiritual path, this is concise, in terms of the words is very short. Okay, in terms of the word is very short, only a few pages. In terms of the meaning, it contains the whole sutras and all earlier Indian commentaries. The essence, the whole essence is in here. Even though in word it is very concise, but in terms of meaning, it has the whole complete path, not just some part of the path, but the whole path, Distilling the essence of all scriptures, even though reciting, because it contains, in terms of the meaning, the whole essence of all the scriptures, meaning all the sutras and all the commentaries. So even though reciting it, when you recite the stage of path, or memorizing it, or listening to it, only once, or reflecting on them, contemplating on them, Even you do only once, whether you are trying to memorize once, we are trying to recite one time, trying to share it one time with others, trying to listen to the teachings one time, or reflecting on even once, you create merit of doing that many times. The benefit of teaching the Dharma, listening to it, and so on, as equal, you create and collect equal virtues, equal merit as reciting all the sutras, all the commentaries. You create equal merit, virtues, collect as listening all those scriptures, sutras many times, or reflecting all of them many times, as contemplating on all of them many times. Because even though we didn't in the words, even though we didn't do that all of them, but in essence, all the essence in there, and we did that. So that's what it says. Since such weight merit are bound to be gathered completely its meanings, So that being the case, then when you will get opportunity, try to meditate, contemplate on those as much as possible. Even when you cannot, even you don't have time to contemplate, at least maybe try to recite them. That will take you 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. Or trying to listen them, whether we are, even while we're doing other things, we can just play, listen to them. Or we can, of course, when there's teaching, we can listen to them in person, or whether it's recorded. So through that, we try to, one, by doing that, of course, as it's mentioned here, we create a lot of virtues, a lot of merit. Why do we need to create merit? Why do we need to, I think sometimes people have misunderstanding the word merit. I think I always feel a lot of things is the word, and people have misconceptions what it really means, and because the term you use merit in the West might be different the way it is used in the Dharma, just like attachment, for example, or cherishing, those many different words, or even desire. Merit is a positive conditions or the virtues that we require for our spiritual growth, for our spiritual realization. Like everything's, even we don't talk from Dharma point of view, even if we talk from for success in any field that you want to be successful, you need a lot of conditions, conducive conditions, isn't it? Factors, conducive condition and factors for your successful. Whatever you want to be successful in whatever field you want. Even in the plants, for them to grow fully excellent, they need the right conducive conditions, factors. Merit is what is that? Merit means internal conducive conditions for the growth of our spiritual realizations. For the growth of our spiritual realizations. To achieve our spiritual goal, enlightenment. That's what merit is. And so that kind of merit is needed. Extremely important, needed. Is needed for our own spiritual realization, is needed to be more benefit. The more merit you have, you are able to help benefit others more. The less merit you have, you are unable to help others more. So again, merit is not something like kind of, giving a mark, award for you to build up your ego, That is not it is so. So that is where merit. So up to here, so we finished the kind of the preliminary, and from here it actually comes that the actual practice is set. And within the actual practice, then there is the practice or the path of middle scope. A small scope, middle scope, and great scope. And before that, in order to engage in those practice, of course, and in order to engage in the practice and meditation, contemplation on that, of course, we need to know how to practice. We need to know how to contemplate, how to meditate. If you don't know how to meditate, you might be meditating with eons and eons, you might not achieve anything. You know, it's trying to plant something you don't know how to plant, and you plant one, and you can be trying your whole life, and you are unable to get anything because you didn't know how to plant. What is it required? You know, what kind of soil is required? How many water is required? What other things, factors required? And it all, you will not be able to achieve what you want to achieve. Same thing, you want to meditate, contemplate, and so that we can have spiritual realizations, and through spiritual realization, so that we can have our transformations in our mind, you know, transforming our mind. So in order to have that, and unmistaken correct meditations, contemplation practice important. In order to have that kind of unmistaken correct meditation, contemplation practice, then we need to know how to do that. In order to know that, then we need someone, because we don't know that, so that we need someone to guide us, to mentor us, to coach us, to help us, show us how to do it, you know, like everything. You know, in our life, we learn, you know, whatever we learn, we have learned from others, you know. Some of things we learn from our parents, you know, as we grow up, they taught us. Then we go to school, we learn many things from the school, from our teachers, you know, at different level of schools, you know. And sometimes we learn from other sources, you know, but we learn. So to be successful in every field, some kind of teacher, mentor is important. Coach is not just the talent and hardship, hard work, you know, those are important factors. You know, someone might be very talented, but if they don't have the right guidance, coach, mentor, they might not be able to utilize their talent to its full potential. Someone might be very hardworking, you know, but if they don't have the right mentor, right teacher guidance, they might not be able to achieve their full potential. So any successful people in the world, you know, they are very much influenced by good mentor or coaches or teachers, you know. And when it's come to spiritual, it becomes even more important because we are talking about something to do internal. Other things are external. We can look and check it, you know. If someone's making food, I can just observe it and I can say, oh, he put that. Oh, he put or she put that. Oh, he keep it 10 minutes. So through that observe, I can learn a little bit. But when someone's meditating and when they experience, I cannot see that. I cannot learn that way. Do you get it? I cannot learn how to meditate by observing that person, just like I can learn how to cook by seeing, you know, or many other things. And so therefore, it becomes even more important to have that kind of spiritual guidance, whatever we call spiritual teachers, masters, gurus, guidance, mentor, you know. And that becomes important, so therefore we start with that. Once we have good spiritual masters, teachers, guides, guidance, you know, then by studying with them, by getting the instructions, the teachings, the help, then we can try to apply that And then by applying that, then and through that, by applying, we try to meditate, contemplate, and practice, and through that, we will be able to, with the time, with the practice, over the time, then we will begin to have some spiritual transformation, or our transforming our mind and some spiritual experience realizations. And when that happens, then it can give you a lot of energy, a lot of boost, a lot of inspirations in your practice and path. Once you have a little bit of taste of that, little experience of that through your practice meditations, you begin to see the possibility of that. Before that, it is all in scriptures, or if you have this will happen, or you will be this happen, this. We have heard about it, but we have never experienced it. And so when you don't experience it, sometimes it's hard to have some inspirations, or but then once you can, even you don't have that realization that you could have just taste of it, what it is like to be in that state. Even it is a momentary in the very beginning, glimpse of that, glimpse of or taste of what that is. And that can give you a lot of energy, inspirations on the path. So I think maybe I'm going to kind of today. I think maybe here. I think maybe we'll stop here because. So any questions, comments, questions? Something to from today's talk?
I have a question, actually.
Yes, please.
In our Dharma care group, it came up, we're reading Lan Renier, and I've never thought about merit as a purification, but it was saying that in the book. And I just thought that was really interesting, because I always just thought of doing all these specific purification practices, but the meritorious actions are also purification.
Well, generally speaking, there are specific practice to collect merit, and there are specific practice for purifications. But the practice of purification also act as a creating merit. The practice of creating merit can also act as a purification. So both, it can act both. But of course, one practice is, even though it does purification, but it's more of collection of merit. One practice, even though it does create merit, but it's more of purifications. But both can be either. For example, whether we do Buddha practice, or whether we do as a purification, Vasadava purification practice, or other form of purification practice, it doesn't mean you don't create merit by doing that. By doing that, you create a lot of merit as well. By reciting the name, mantras, and other form of visualization and contemplation, all of that, you create merit. But the focus is more on purification. And then some other practice, the focus is more on accumulation of merit, such as offerings or mandala and so forth. But also it also purifies, because the more merit you have, the more virtues you have. The more virtues you have, and then it kind of reduces the negative, the obstacles more, and so, yeah.
Thank you. I just never thought that. I had never thought of it in those terms, but it makes sense.
Okay, thank you for asking that question. I guess maybe some others might have same thoughts. Any others? It can be question, it can be something you want to share. Comments? Yes, yeah.
The fifth instructions
Do I understand it correctly that the instructions are essentially the essence of teachings?
Normally, the fit instructions are like, there is a way of general understanding of fit instructions is a very specific kind of individual related instructions, okay? For example, just to give Marba's instruction on Miladeva, very specific instructions that he gave to Miladeva, which he might have not given to others, very much kind of, or vice versa, Telobas to Naroba and Naroba, all of that, or so. And sometimes, there is a general kind of understanding, when you talk about PIT instructions, very short, simple, not much words, like that. But as His Holiness always says, that is wrong understanding of what PIT instruction means. Narajuna's writing is PIT instructions. Asanga's writing is PIT instructions. Those are the best PIT instructions. So you cannot kind of, put them as not a PIT instructions and something as very small collection of some small advice as the PIT instructions. All of these are PIT instructions, and that is why also Lama Tsongkhapa here is saying, all the sutras, all the commentaries by those Nagarjuna, Asanga, and all those great masters, they all are PIT instructions. Because they all are instructions how to achieve enlightenment, how to transform our mind, So in generally, there is this kind of, you can say misunderstanding. I think in general, even in Tibet, when you talk about PIT instruction, is like kind of something you don't share with others, something is very special. You give to one individual students. And as told, it is as whole as is a bit precious, more precious than Nagarjuna's commentaries, more precious than Asanga's, no more precious than that, sometimes that kind of misunderstanding, Oh, I have something PIT instruction to you, As though you have something to give that which Nagarjuna has not been able to explain, or Asanga has not been able, or Buddha has not able, It is all it is explained. It might be, of course, different, little bit skillful means to present, as we mentioned, according to the need of them. But so, I think, not only his one, and also in many of the Kadamba masters, they have also said that. Because even at that time, there's a misunderstanding, even in Tibet, where people always said, oh, this is PIT instructions, it's like very special, It's very special for you, Do you get it? I have something very special, not for everyone, just for you. I'm not going to share this PIT instruction, but I have a very PIT instruction just for you, And sometimes those can be also misused, misused by also sometimes unqualified teachers as well, kind of to grab, others, to make them feel special. We have something special for them, so that is kind of misunderstanding. All of those are PIT instructions, yeah. So yeah. Okay, we can do the dedication then.
I have a list here and I'll leave a little space at the end of each one, so if you want to add names. Yeah. So for people with obstacles, we have Siri, Alyssa, Laura, Maureen, Maggie, Jim Bailey, SJ, Mimi, Antias, Dasha, Katia, Deb, John, Jiwan, Sean, Mara, Bill, Jana, Jeffrey, Vivian, and Sebastian.
Yeah.
And those people who are dealing with illness, we have John Whaley, Siri, person who has had 2 fingers amputated, 4 people injured in Ukraine, Walter, Dorcas, David, Patty, Alan, Gregory, Arrow the dog, Irma, Diane, Kathy A, Randy R, Lisa C, Clay Shearer, Jack, Vera, Ed Hanlon, Rolf, Sujata, Alejandro, and those who have recently died. Claire, 3 people who died in flash flood, 4 people who have died in war in Ukraine, wildlife who died in unsuitable environments, Frankie the dog, Laura, Chuck, Rudabe Alan, Micah Malone, Laura, Dale, Mira, and Suzanne.
Geshe, could you ask her to put 2 more names on the recently died list?
2 more lists. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. Amigo, the horse, and Checkers, the cat. Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah.
We'll do the first 2 dedication prayers on page 235 in Tibet. Changchun Sancho Rinpoche, Make Pana Kyuchi, Kewanyam Pame Payam, Gome Gangu Kewasho. And on page 244, you should have paper clipped in the new prayer for His Holiness. We'll do that one first, and then for Lama Zopa Rinpoche in Tibet. Jigten under the Maruka, Kamba Jungwe Sangye Ishino, Kadrin Jume Tenzin Yatsoma, So so Tuje Tutsu Changin Jaga Yare, Tenzin Kyongwe Konsoto Ose, Chosun Kure Le Mondu, Hata Solu.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Geshe. Thank you so much, Geshe.
Who's that?
Goodbye.
But you do.